All right, so I thought it would be interesting to go over the effects section of the Deepmind and kind of tweak around with the different effects and see what there is to offer. So as you can see in the middle here, I have an iPad connected via Wi-Fi. So there's an iPad app that comes with the Deepmind. It gives you access to all the controls of the synth. So I'm just going to be focusing on the effects section for now. Everything I'm going to be doing is accessible via the synth directly, so you don't need an iPad app. I'm just using it here because there's a nicer interface and you can kind of see the graphical representation of the effects. So the synth gives you 4 slots for effects, and you can route those slots through each other in various different ways. So you have this effect routing section here. Right now I have it set in a serial manner, so it'll go through the first one and then into the second one and then third and fourth. But you can also choose these different variations here. As you can see, you can have 1 and 2 in parallel and then both going through 3 and 4 in series, and a bunch of other different combinations. So for now, I'm just going to stick to the serial fashion, and I'm only going to pick one effect for now. We're just going to cycle through all the effects so you get a feel for what's available. So I can pick my first slot, and here are all the effects we have available. So let's just kind of go through them one by one. Here we go. We have a TC deep verb here with a bunch of presets. So I have a max, my mix is set to 100% now, so I'm going to lower it down to 50%. And here we have some presets to, or kind of modes to choose from. We have ambient, which is more subtle. You have a pre-delay time, a decay time, and a tone. So we have church here. We have gate. We have hall. There's a lo-fi setting. There's a mod here. Plate. Room. Spring. Tiled. And then default. So it's a pretty simple reverb. You have a few kind of algorithms, a pre-delay, a decay time, a tone, and a mix setting. And that covers the TC deep verb. That's just one of many. So we have a long way to go here. We have an ambience one. Again, pre-delay, decay, size, damping, diffuse, and a mix setting. Moving on, we have a room reverb. So same settings as the ambience one. again, I'm not going to tweak all these knobs for all these things because we're going to be there forever, but you get the general gist of the kinds of things you can do here. We have something called a vintage room reverb. And similar controls, I mean, they're just basic reverb controls, pre-delay, decay, size, density. And here you have some kind of filter, a low cut, high cut, and a mix setting. There's also a freeze. Moving along, we have a hall reverb. Again, same settings as the other basic, like all these white ones you see have the same 6 knobs you can change. This is a rich plate. We have a chamber reverb. There's a plate reverb here. So you have your normal pre-delay, decay size, damping, diffusion, and then you have a filter, low cut, high cut, a bass malt, a crossover, modulation depth, and modulation speed, looks like. We already covered the rich, and we have a gated reverb here. Again, similar settings. You have a mix, pre-delay. All the reverbs sound fantastic, at least to my ears. So we covered a lot of these. There's reverse, gated. We have a chorus reverb. Moving on, there's a delay reverb. So you have a delay time here. Sounds pretty nice. There's a flanger reverb. So you get these kind of reverb slash combined with other effects. You have flanger, chorus, delay. Similar controls, you have speed, depth, delay. So it looks like the control for the kind of alternate effect is here. So for the flanger, and then you have the normal reverb stuff here. And here we have an EQ. It looks like a 4-band EQ. So you have low frequency. Then you have a mid, a high mid, and a high frequency. So I guess those are the 4 bands. So up here you pick the frequency and then you have a gain control, standard EQ settings. And there's also a Q for the low mid, which is kind of the peak resonance. Similar for high mid, you have a gain, frequency, and a Q. Yeah, so you get the feel for it. You have low, low mid, and high. You have an enhancer here. Output gain, spread, bass gain, bass frequency, mid gain, and mid Q. And high gain, high Q. Moving along, we have a fair comp, which is a fair compressor. Standard settings, input gain, threshold, DC bias, time, output gain. You have a bias balance, input gain, threshold, time, DC bias, and output. So it looks like it's divided. You have mono left at the top and right stereo at the bottom, if I'm understanding that correctly. I'm not too familiar with the different settings on this thing, but it looks like you have a fairly common sets of compressor controls. Most common being the threshold and the input-output gain. And then you have your attack, which I guess is what the time represents here. Here we have multi-band distortion. You have low band level and low drive. You have an input gain and distortion type. A crossover frequency 1 and 2. And then you have your mid and high over here. So mid band and mid drive. So it's cool to get these kind of fat, fuzzy bass tones. It looks like there's a cabinet emulation here, or cabinet, sorry. And that's it for the multiband distortion. Let's move up. We have our rack amp here. So you have preamp, buzz, punch, crunch, drive. So you get sort of guitarish tones. Could get pretty crazy pretty quickly. I'm having to bring my volume all the way down for some of these things. Again, it would have been cool if they included some kind of inputs. You can plug a guitar into these. We have an Edison EX1 Plus. I'm not quite sure what this is. There's a stereo spread and there's some distortion here. kind of distortion and stereo spreading. We have an auto pan / tremolo here. So you have a speed, a phase, wave, and it looks like it morphs between triangle and square. And you have a modulation depth here. Then you have envelope speed, envelope depth. Then you have attack, hold, and release. We have a noise gate here. And then we get into the delays here. We have a stereo delay. So there's a mix setting here. There's a feedback mode. And there's a time control here. And then you have kind of time delay offsets for the left and right channel if you want to create stereo, sort of like ping pong type. And similarly, you have feedback down here for both left and right independently. And then it looks like we have a feedback low cut and feedback high cut filters. So you can make the feedback, the repeated notes, more muffled to emulate kind of more of a vintage analog vibe. So let me bring back my plucky sound here. And then we have a 3-tap delay. Time control here. A gain on pan and a mix. And you have these factor A, factor B, which I think are just contribute to the time division of the second and third taps, I believe. I'm not 100% sure. And you can set the different pan levels. Moving along, we have a 4-tap delay, so similar concept as the other one, except now you have 3 factors to control. And you have a different gain amount for the different. Underneath that, we have a T-ray delay, tel-ray. It says echo reverb, so it might be an emulation of one of those tape echo machines that had reverbs built in, or it could be way off. Again, just simple controls. You have mix, delay. Yeah, judging by how this behaves. There's also a wobble. This is probably like an analog delay emulation. Yeah, that seems to be distorting. Very similar to how tape would, so. I believe this will self. Yeah, the feedback goes infinite. Kind of like that, it's quite playable. And here we have a Decimator delay. Interesting combination. Oh, that sounds really cool. Looks like the feedback chain of the delay gets routed through a decimator. So your echoes get more and more grainy and lo-fi. That's quite cool. You have a bit reduction here. Filter type. You have a cutoff frequency and a resonance. So I guess the feedback loop gets routed through a filter and bit reduction and decimator, which you can kind of tame with this filter. You have downsampling here. The bit reduction is a little extreme. You can go down to 1 bit, which you can barely hear anything. It goes from 24 bit to 1 bit. And you can set the decimator to be before or after. You have pre and post. That's a really cool sound, actually. That's really quite amazing. Maybe overreacting here, but this is one of the better things I've heard in a long time. Gives you this kind of aura of crunchiness, but it doesn't overwhelm the sound because you can still hear the initial sound, and then only the repeats start to get a little muffled. And then you can control how crazy it is with this filter. Let's see what it sounds like in the different ranges of the keyboard. That is way too cool. Sorry, I'm gonna get stuck on this plugin for a while now. I find this bit reduction, I don't know why it goes so low, because the sound basically disappears once you get below 16 bits. I find it, you can only start hearing it at 16 bits. Maybe I'm doing something wrong here, but it just seems weird to allow you to go that crazy. This will be great for a drone patch as well. You almost get like Geiger counter type of. Anyways, let's move on, otherwise I get stuck there forever. We have a mod delay. Again, similar controls. Time, you have a factor, so you can scale it based on time signature. And then it looks like there's 3 algorithms, ambient, hall, and club. We're in hall right now. This is ambient, and then you have club. Sounds pretty cool. You have a mix knob, balance, feedback. You can set it to stereo or parallel. You have depth and speed, which I guess is the depth of the modulation LFO and the speed of the LFO. And then decay and dampening. Moving along, we have a basic stereo chorus. You have speed. You have width left and right, so you can set independent stereo. And then you have basic EQ, low cut, high cut. You have a phase, wave, which goes from triangle to sine. And that's the modulation LFO, I'm guessing. And then spread, which I'm guessing is a stereo spread. There's another chorus here. It says dimensional chorus. Alright, we have a stereo flanger here. Similar settings. We have speed, width, left and right. Delay left and right, mix, low cut, high cut, phase, and feedback low cut and feedback high cut. And then feedback. Then we have a phaser. Again, these are all similar effects based on delay modulations. They have a they share the same front panel here. Speed, depth, resonance, bass, stages, mix, the modulation waveform, phase, envelope mod, and then you have a basic envelope, attack, hold, release. Then there's something called a mood filter, which maybe play on being a Moog filter. That might be what they were going for. I'm not 100% sure. Looks like it's a filter that's tied to an LFO that modulates the cutoff frequency. There's also an envelope here to modulate. You have bass mode, speed, depth, and resonance. And then you can choose between 2 poles and 4 poles. This is 2 poles now. dual pitch. Which sounds like it's some kind of harmonizer. Which is kind of cool to fatten up the sound. It almost gives you the illusion of having two other oscillators. I love these kind of weird, eerie sounds. So you have semitone, divide by cents, or adjust by cents. You have delay, gain, and pan. And then you have the exact same controls for the second, because you have two pitches here. And then there's a high cut control here and a mix control. And finally, we have a rotary speaker, which is basically a Leslie simulation, I'm guessing. So you have slow, fast. Then you have the speed for the slow and fast. Balance, distance, and acceleration. So you can stop it here and then activate it again. Basic Leslie stuff. Again, you would probably use this on something more like an organ, but I'm not going to bother to try to simulate an organ now because we're just going through the effects, but Alright, so that covers all the effects here at a generally high level, but hopefully that gives you an idea of the kinds of sounds that are available here. I find the effects sound really nice. The reverbs sound great. The delays sound really nice. That analog reverb was great. That Decimator delay thing was awesome. Distortion is pretty cool. Basically, all the effects are top notch in my opinion. And we've only just scratched the surface because I've only been using one slot. So you can imagine layering 3 other effects from any of these banks, which could exponentially increase the sonic palette you can create here. And also remember the effect routing. I have it going serially now. And in this case, it's irrelevant because I only have one effect, but you can imagine if you have multiple effects, you can run some in parallel, you can run some in series, and there's a bunch of different algorithms here. This video is already getting really long, so I'm not going to continue here, but hopefully that gives you an idea of at least individual effects and what they can do. If you like this kind of stuff, let me know. I can continue and make more videos to explore some of the other routing and try to combine 2 different effects together. All right, I'll see you guys in the next one.